the myth that keeps marketing functions stuck is it's not working, therefore let's hire a better person. And the reality is it's not a people problem. It's that the function isn't deliberately designed to be mature enough to support the growth the business needs. And that's always more than one person. It's a combination of skills and experience. That to hire all of that in-house would be too expensive for most businesses and take too much time. So you end up back at kind of a hybrid model that's quite hard to manage. When a marketing function doesn't have a system that is followed by all, it leads to the impression that the function needs fixing. Everything becomes very reactive and quite often it defaults to almost operating as a service desk to other functions. You know, the risk there is that the commercial impact of the marketing function is actually driven by requests from sales, ops, and business development, and so on. So it becomes almost like the traditional view of an IT service desk, but marketing.
Welcome back to Made to Grow, the podcast for SME manufacturers, brought to you by Flowlens, MRP and MES software. This is episode 2 of season 4, and today I'm joined by Rich Webley, founder of Framework 12. Rich is a fractional marketing director who specialises exclusively in manufacturing. He's spent around 20 years leading and fixing marketing functions in manufacturing businesses, and now helps SME manufacturers run their marketing as a properly resourced, systemised function rather than a collection of disconnected activities. In this conversation, we dig into some of the most common myths around marketing when it isn't working, by throwing more people or ideas at the problem often misses the point, and what Rich's experience has taught him about how busy manufacturing CEOs can reset and scale their marketing in a more cost-effective way. We also talk about marketing maturity, why marketing so often becomes a reactive service desk for the rest of the business, and what it actually looks like when marketing is treated as a system that's fit for growth. Let's get into the conversation. So welcome back to Made to Grow, the podcast for SME manufacturers, brought to you by Flowlens. I'm delighted to welcome today Rich Webley from Framework 12. Rich is an experienced fractional marketing director working and specialising with the manufacturing industry. So I'm really eager to learn more about what Rich does and how he helps SME manufacturers transform their growth. But Rich, could you give our listeners a bit more of an introduction to yourself?
Of course, yeah. Well, firstly, thanks for having me, Rich. It's good to be here. So a bit of an introduction to me and what I do. So I'm CEO of a business called Framework 12. We provide fully managed, fully outsourced marketing functions specifically built for manufacturers. So we only work in the manufacturing space. We describe our model as marketing function as a service, sort of MFAAS. Not because we're a software company, but we find that when we use the AAS acronym, people tend to understand what we mean, which is we essentially run our clients' entire marketing operation on an outsourced basis, planning, management, reporting for a monthly fee. So that's what we do. I also, alongside that, do a bit of NED work and a bit of advisory work with CEOs and boards who need to turn around underperforming marketing. Again, all in the manufacturing space or related industries, so industrial brands, brands in the manufacturing supply chain, and so on. So that's what we do. We're fairly new. Framework 12 has only been trading for about a year. We've got 5 clients. I can give you a bit of background to how we started and where that came from, if that's helpful, Rich.
Yeah, it'd be good to understand, where you saw the opportunity to provide that kind of fractional as a service.
Sure. Okay. So I suppose the backstory is I've personally been in marketing for 20 years, there or thereabouts, and spent the first half running large functions in house in scaling manufacturers, a couple of times top 100 brands. The second half, so more later years, I've been self-employed and working, as you mentioned, as a fractional CMO. So as a result, over the last 10 years, I've been responsible for over 20 marketing functions in manufacturing or related industries. And I noticed a couple of things during that time. Aside from it just being very busy, there was a repeating pattern that I noticed when businesses were struggling with marketing not meeting their expectations. There's kind of a frustration that they're not quite getting the results that they want or deserve from their investment. The first really was that it's quite often the underlying issue with marketing performance isn't an effort problem or a talent problem or a lack of ideas or resources. It's quite often the function itself isn't fit for purpose. So the level of maturity in the marketing function is lagging behind the rest of the business. So that was kind of my first light bulb moment after 20 years of trying to build effective marketing functions in lots of different situations, sectors, and goals. And the sort of second observation I had was that marketing as a function often lacks systems. You've got other in project management. There's Prince2, and in finance there are certain regulated ways of working. Same in HR, production, lean, and so on. With marketing, it's quite often just driven by enthusiasm and the idea of the week. As a result of building and running 20 teams over the last decade, in response to that observation, I sort of built my own operating system. So, have you heard of traction, EOS, as a methodology? So that's a sort of a methodology for running a business. It's quite prolific, and I've essentially built the marketing version of traction. So the combination of noticing that often marketing performance is a functional problem, not an underlying issue with strategy or ideas or people, and most functions lack a system. And I built one. I decided that I'd have the most impact on manufacturers if I started to build a team and offer marketing function as a service for businesses that just want it done for them. So that's my. I could talk about that all day, but we're here to talk about other things.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you talk about systems because most manufacturers are used to the system that runs their business and the cadence of the week or the day or the month that ensures that they get product out the door. So the concept of a system for marketing is probably something that resonates with a lot of manufacturers, even if they don't necessarily understand the actual tactics or the practicalities of it. I mean, what we see a lot in our world is SMEs are they're stretched. They're adopting products like FlowLens to be able to scale without adding more admin. But irrespective of that, the constant demands of the business, of customers, of manufacturing and delivery, new product development, are very constraining. You're really always brought down into the day to day. So we tend to see that kind of marketing is something that you should be doing, and so as you sort of said there, the idea of the week, or I tend to see a lot of companies who are doing trade shows because their competitors are doing trade shows, and they think that's a good way to do it, and sometimes they are. And oftentimes they come back having spent 10 or 20 or 30 grand on a stand, and a week's worth of resource burnt with a lot of business cards that aren't going to go anywhere. So
Yeah.
so I think for those companies that and those founders and managers who can see themselves in the they know they're in the weeds, but they know they've got a vision of where they want to get to. Having a system is something that they can understand,
Yeah.
because I can see that a lot of manufacturers' growth is kind of constrained, or there's like a glass ceiling there that they can't get beyond, and they don't necessarily know how to do it. So can you go into a bit more of the detail of the system, and how you overcome that kind of stalling factor, that kind of happens after the natural organic growth runs out?
Absolutely, yeah, no problem. So, I mean, there are a number of factors that I see repeatedly in terms of why marketing so often holds back growth for manufacturing SMEs. Lack of a system is definitely one of them. I think beyond a certain size and stage, you need a systematic approach to marketing implementation, just in order to drive progress and to keep pace with the rest of the business. That's what I see. Like I said earlier, think Prince 2 for project management, Lean for production. When a marketing function doesn't have a system that is followed by all, it leads to the impression that the function needs fixing. Everything becomes very reactive, and quite often it defaults to almost operating as a service desk to the two other functions. The risk there is that the commercial impact of the marketing function is actually driven by requests from sales, ops, and business development, and
Yeah,
so on.
yeah.
So it becomes almost like the traditional view of an IT service desk, but
Hmm.
marketing.
But for marketing. So what is a good one, like what does the transformed marketing function look like then?
So from a system point of view, the approach that I take is to create a very deliberate 90-day cycle. So what I've seen in the past is that when businesses and obviously manufacturers tend to work in 12-month cycles, and like many businesses are big fans of the annual plan. The challenge with that from a marketing perspective is that they good strategies gather dust by the halfway point. By 6 months the world's changed and moved on. Marketing functions that set very clear, specific 90-day goals tend to outperform those that don't. So the operating system that I've built hangs off of a 90-day cycle. So we set clear objectives and key results that we're looking to hit in the next 90 days. We've then got monthly reporting on results and progress, and then weekly activity and progress reports, and ways of creating the right feedback loops with sales functions and so on. So what drives the most progress is quarterly goals, monthly kind of confidence at board level, and then weekly visibility at an operational level. And alongside that, what you need is a structure that's fit for purpose. That's the biggest thing that I see holding back manufacturing SMEs in the UK. When you look at what it takes to grow by, let's say, 15-20% year on year in terms of sales, and how the proportion of UK manufacturers that actually achieve 20% year on year sales growth is actually only 10%, there or thereabouts. So you've got a scenario where most businesses will plan each year to grow by an ambitious number. Only 1 in 10 will actually achieve it. So from a marketing perspective, you've really got to outperform 9 out of 10 of your competitors, all things being equal, in order to support that level of growth. When you look at what a function needs in order to deliver that kind of performance and to compete in that way in your market, it needs a whole mix of things. It needs the right level of product knowledge. It needs the right level of strategic know-how, really strong hands-on management, specialist skills on specialist tasks, and the right amount of executional capacity. Now, the trap that a lot of SMEs fall into is to settle for what they can afford, which is typically a single marketing manager that just becomes super busy, really overwhelmed, quite unproductive quite quickly, or they tend to outsource it all to an agency that by nature can't stay operationally connected enough to the business and to the technicalities of the product. So the only real structure that's fit for purpose for a growing SME is a hybrid model of a really strong hands-on manager with some experienced oversight of someone that's done it a few times before, and then specialist freelancers, specialist suppliers that have got industry experience. And that sounds really simple, but the reality is that most CEOs that don't come from a marketing background, that are kind of accidentally in the CMO seat, will make a mess of that, and first time around at least. So
it's fairly common to sort of expect that you can hire a unicorn who is skilled at absolutely every aspect of marketing, and there's such a diverse array of skills between from the creative to the technical and the communications and so on, that it's impossible, as you say, to understand the breadth of that, and never mind be competent in all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head there. The myth that keeps marketing functions stuck is it's not working, therefore let's hire a better person. And the reality is it's not a people problem. It's that the function isn't deliberately designed to be mature enough to support the growth the business needs. And that's always more than one person. It's a combination of skills and experience. That to hire all of that in-house would be too expensive for most businesses and take too much time. So you end up back at kind of a hybrid model that's quite hard to manage. So that's what tends to hold back businesses. The other factor I see, the pattern I see time and time again, is just too much guesswork when it comes to where to focus time and money. There's decades of marketing science and research out there that really gives marketers proven laws to follow, predictable patterns to follow in terms of how to drive growth. But most of it is ignored. It's one of those professions that's unregulated. You can become a CEO, you can become a CMO without having passed any marketing qualifications or demonstrated that you've digested and understood the most important research in the field. So, from my experience, the fundamentals of what does it take for a marketing team to contribute meaningfully to growth is you need a function that's fit for purpose. You need to be taking an evidence-based approach based on the science that's out there, and you need a system. So hopefully that answers your question in more detail.
The Made to Grow podcast is brought to you by FlowLens, the simple, affordable MRP system specifically designed for SME device, equipment and machinery manufacturers. Our top-rated cloud-based software can help you cut down on wasted materials, time and money, and eliminate the chaos of running your manufacturing with spreadsheets and hope. Our customers have reported savings of over a day per week per person in their business by cutting out needless admin, duplication of work, and countless mistakes. Plus, lead times are shortened by up to 75%. And after hundreds of successful implementations, we've got the blueprint for manufacturing success nailed down. Head over to flowlens.com for a quick video tour of the software and to hear from more manufacturers like you who have transformed their businesses with Flowlens. Now, back to the interview. So, in terms of your systematic approach, it would be good to kind of articulate that for the listeners. You know, what does a fractional function look like? What does it feel like? You know, how do you engage with a manufacturer to understand if they're, you know, the right fit for that kind of thing? Are they mature enough? Do they have, you know, realistic expectations, and do they have ambitious enough goals to be able to work with them? Because we, you know, we find, you know, in our world of changing systems from an operational standpoint, you know, by and large, people come to us because they see that that constraint internally from a growth perspective is the operating system for their business, you know, processes. But sometimes we also get people who are just looking for a silver bullet, and you know, there's still work to be done. There's change, and there's a cultural change, and it's all needs to be underpinned by a vision of where you want the business to be in, you know, 3 to 5 years. So I know there's a lot packed into that question, but yeah, I'm just sort of curious as you know, when it really comes down to the nitty gritty of you know, what does it mean for a manufacturer who's feels like they've hit that growth or that glass ceiling. You know, what happens next whenever they engage with you?
Yeah, great question. So I think probably the first thing to mention is that, you know, some of the traditional approaches to marketing resourcing are fine for a business that's got sort of mid pack ambition, for want of a better phrase. You know, there's for a business that's just looking to remain stable, maintain market share, not lose money, maybe grow by a few percent each year. You know, a single marketing manager or a strong agency partner and so on. So that will work. It will keep things ticking along. We found that for businesses that are specifically targeting 15-20% growth and above, and are at that stage that, let's say, between 3 million, 15 million pound turnover, engaging a fully functional marketing function as a service is a model that fits perfectly, because they get a function that works and that keeps pace with the rest of their business. But building that in-house for that stage of business with that level of performance required to grow by 20% or more would just simply take too much time and money to build in-house. So that was sort of part of your question, was that what would be a good fit. You know, for me, it's about size, stage, and ambition. In terms of practically speaking, what does it look like? The components are we put in a dedicated marketing manager that's got manufacturing experience, so there's no learning curve. They're trained in our operating system, so there's a ready to go 90-day cycle that means we're setting the right goals, we're executing really well, we're making progress way beyond the norm of what you'd expect from an SME marketing function, because we're following a system. That person gets senior oversight from myself and others that have been in the industry a long time and contribute from a strategic perspective. And then we've got a bench of specialist suppliers that are brought in on a flexible basis where specialist skills are required. So you get that the combination of continuity, stability, a system, consistent progress but without one person trying to be a jack of all trades. So that's how it
And
works in practice.
and whenever you first engage with that company, so before you kick off the first 90-day cycle,
Mm.
presumably there's a, an analysis of is it the low hanging fruit, or is that too opportunistic? Is it looking at that particular company's position in the market, where and identifying what the growth levers are, so because I think that's the thing that a lot of businesses probably, particularly in today's world with AI dominating the headlines and whatnot as well. What should we be doing, and where should we be putting the money? um, so coming back to that scientific approach, how do you actually analyze what is the right uh, thing to do, or set of things to do, that will it get those results, in 90 days, cycle after cycle after cycle?
Yeah, yeah. So as part of our onboarding process, we run a really thorough diagnostic that will extract as much information as we need from the business to understand their current situation and benchmark what they've been doing historically versus what we know works, and that's grounded in an evidence base, in the sort of scientific research and our own experience. And as part of that, what we'll also be doing is analysing the category they compete in, because the one thing we've found over the years is that um, in order for a marketing function to really perform, there needs to be really strong shared understanding of the role it needs to play in contributing to growth for that particular business.
Hmm.
And the source of that needs to be a solid understanding of the buying patterns and behaviours in the category,
Yeah.
the length of time between purchases, the triggers that will prompt someone, a buyer, to enter the market, the typical decision window, the factors that affect purchase decisions, the competitive pressures in the category they're in, and I could go on all day about category analysis, but
Hmm.
that's part of the onboarding process. So we we arrive at our first quarterly planning session, where we're there to set the goals for the first 90 days with a really clear understanding of the biggest opportunities to drive growth for that business. And there'll be a few
Hmm.
conversations along the way with various stakeholders, so it's a collaborative process. But yeah, it's not obviously not as simple as just turning up and picking some goals and cracking on. There's definitely the right level of rigor and scientific approach that applied up front.
Yeah. No, I mean that's what you need to sort of be convincing, because you're still going to be spending money on things that maybe are outside the company's current experience, or whatever. So
Yeah,
having that analysis and understanding is probably eye opening for a lot of companies. They probably learn stuff that they didn't even realize about their customers or their market, once you've done that analysis.
yeah, some real penny drop moments for sure.
I mentioned AI earlier there, and no marketing conversation would be complete without some conversation on the topic.
Yeah,
But there's obviously a lot of hype there, and there's a lot of FOMO, fear of missing out, um, and there's a lot of goodness in terms of helping the chatbots find you and understand what you do, and why they could help users find the right solution. But where are you seeing AI actually add value in the sort of manufacturing marketing mix, and where are you seeing just the hype that doesn't deliver?
mm. Well, yeah, there's certainly a lot of hype, but for good reason. AI is moving so fast. There's a potential new use case every day. So it would be silly to ignore the opportunity there. Um, the pace of change and the variety of use cases also means there's a huge opportunity to waste time and money. So that's the flip side. What I'd say, what I'm about to say is probably sounds a little bit boring, but it's been transformational in the businesses that I've worked with, and that's that if you really want to scale your marketing efforts using AI, I find you need to focus on creating what I describe as the sort of the perfect repeatable week or the perfect repeatable month. That's an idea I have to credit Daniel Priestley, an author, to originally came up with the idea, and I've sort of run with it. What I mean by it is work out for within this function, and it'll be different for every marketing function. What do we need to do every week or every month in order to experience growth and success? And depending on the business, that could be run a webinar, run a CPD online, run a CPD in person, attend an event, publish some content, refresh some advertising creative, whatever it might be. For every business, marketing shouldn't be that complicated. There'll be a few things you need to do really, really well in order to drive results. So there should be some repeatable things. And that's the opportunity to invest time and money in leveraging AI. Because when you start out in investing in a marketing function, it's all about finding out what works, and there's a bit of experimentation. But at some point, manual repetition constrains growth and creates a ceiling. So the approach I take is sort of to test manually channels, ideas, tactics, prove results, define the perfect repeatable week, automate as much as possible using AI, and there's a new tool every day out there to explore. And then where AI is adding huge value to marketing functions versus those that are lagging behind is because they built sort of a machine of repeatable processes, not necessarily a campaign. They're not using ChatGPT to do their copywriting or their LinkedIn posts. They're actually using it to create operational efficiency. So that's and what they get there is they're creating room for growth. They're creating extra hours in the day. And
have you an example of a kind of?
Sorry, go on.
So, sorry to interrupt. Have you an example? It'd be interesting to sort of know a more specific example of a process that was able to be optimized and automated to achieve that saving.
So a few examples. So a few things we've done the last few months. So we've introduced some AI tools to give us more predictability around getting attendees to a monthly online CPD, for example. That was one. We've also started to use AI to take meeting notes from sales meetings. So salesperson has a prospect meeting or a meeting with a client, updates notes in HubSpot or other CRM system. AI tool then interprets meeting notes and creates content for LinkedIn. So you've got a constant flow of LinkedIn content that is not only quicker to produce, but it's actually very timely and in tune with what people are discussing in the industry. So that's another one. We've also introduced some AI to how to serve up the next best bit of content to a prospect that's downloaded a data sheet, for example, based on
that's interesting.
Based on their previous behaviour and the data sheet that they downloaded. So off the top of my head, those are the recent use cases, but I would say those weren't experiments that started with AI. They were experiments that were run manually. They were proven to succeed, and then we locked them in using AI tools, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Because I've forgotten the exact term, but there's a concern about AI and people's cognitive capabilities being depleted by depending too much on it. So starting with the experiment first, defining the process, seeing how it works, and then optimizing it with automation and AI, is a more engaged process rather than just hoping for the best that the AI is doing what you think it's doing.
Yeah.
You might have answered my next question with that little answer, but just as we sort of wrap up the conversation, I ask my guests to leave listeners with a piece of actionable advice that they can take away from the discussion. So, what would you leave listeners with to think about today, based on their growth plans and maybe some of their frustrations to do with marketing?
Oh, great question. I would say perhaps this isn't sort of a tactical action that someone can take away, but more of a question. I would just encourage any CEO or MD or business owner that's frustrated with their marketing functional performance to sort of stop asking why isn't marketing working, what's broken about this, and start asking, what is this function missing in order to work properly and perform at the standard we need to, and compare the function to others in their business, in terms of maturity. You look at other departments, and they tend to have more structure, better processes, and so a reframing of the real issue, I think, is the starting point for most businesses. And if marketing's felt harder than it should for years, assessing the maturity of the function is really the key starting point.
Perfect. I couldn't agree more. Put a stop to random acts of marketing and take a step back and understand, actually, have we got the right set of skills, capabilities, and strategies to deliver what we want, rather than trying a different trade show next time and see if the business cards are any better from it. Well, Rich, I really appreciate your time. How do listeners get in touch with you? Obviously, we'll put links in the show notes as well.
Probably the best place would be LinkedIn. That's where. So search for Rich Webley or Framework 12 on LinkedIn. That's where I publish a lot of content there that may resonate with the CEO that is accidentally in the CMO seat and might be helpful. And reach out, get in touch. I'm always delighted to meet new CEOs or MDs in the manufacturing space.
Cool. Well, we'll get that linked up in the show notes. And once again, Rich, it's been a pleasure chatting. Thanks so much for sharing all of that with us and the listeners. And I'll chat to you again soon.
Thanks, Rich. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
That was a fascinating conversation. I found it particularly interesting to reframe marketing not as a set of tactics or campaigns, but as a function that needs the right level of maturity, structure, and resourcing, just like finance, operations, or production. Rich makes a really strong case for why marketing shouldn't exist purely to react to requests from sales or operations, and why sustainable growth depends on treating marketing as a system with the right mix of expertise, processes, and tools behind it. If you're a manufacturing leader who feels like marketing has become harder work than it should be, or that it never quite delivers the return you expect, Rich and the team at Framework 12 are well worth checking out for their systemised, evidence-led approach. As always, you'll find more details in the show notes. Thanks for listening to Made to Grow. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, and we'll be back soon with another conversation focused on helping manufacturers grow with confidence. Till next time.